Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and in today's episode we are going to be setting up the Raspberry Pi 5 from scratch. I'll walk you through the essential hardware, how to connect everything and install an operating system so your Raspberry Pi 5 is ready to go. If you are new to the channel, this video is part of a full series created to guide users of all experience levels from beginners to advanced in getting the most out of their Raspberry Pi 5. We will be covering project ideas and other great Raspberry Pi content, so be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the notification bell to be notified when we upload any new content. For my more seasoned viewers, I appreciate your patience as we revisit the basics for our newer members, but not to worry, there are plenty of exciting episodes planned coming up on the channel, so stay tuned for them. I also have some exciting news to share with you all at the end of this episode, so be sure to stick around for that. As always, you can find links to all the recommended hardware I'm using in this series in the description box below. For full disclosure, the links are affiliate links. These are products I've personally tested, and using the links below helps support the channel at no extra cost to you. So a big thank you to all that have used them. Alright, so if you're ready, let's jump straight in and take a look at what you need to get your Raspberry Pi 5 set up. Before we get started with connecting the Raspberry Pi 5, let's first go over the hardware you'll need. The first and most important component is, of course, it's the Raspberry Pi 5, the ultimate beast. Available in 3 RAM options, 2GB, 4GB and 8GB. If you are working on lightweight projects or on a budget, the 2GB or 4GB models will be perfect. But for heavier tasks like running multiple containers or virtual machines, the 8GB version is the best choice. Next up is the micro SD card. This is where the operating system and files will be stored. I recommend a class 10 micro SD card with at least 32GB of storage. The class 10 rating ensures fast read and write speeds, which is essential for smoother performance. If you plan on doing more data intensive tasks, you might want to go even higher with a 64GB or 128GB card. However, with the Raspberry Pi 5's new PCIe Express 2.0 port, you also have the option of using an NVMe drive for storage, which can provide significantly faster read and write speeds compared to the SD card. This requires an NVMe hat, and there are a few options available. We will be looking more in detail at installing an NVMe hat in an upcoming episode, where I will also compare the official Raspberry Pi M.2 hat with the Pi Moroni NVMe hat, discussing why you may choose one over the other. So if you are planning on installing your operating system onto an NVMe drive instead of the SD card, you might want to wait around for that episode. If you are watching this episode in the future, that episode may already be live, and I'll include a link to it in the description box below. Next, we'll be looking at the power supply. It's crucial to use the correct power supply for the Raspberry Pi 5 to ensure smooth performance and avoid instability. The Raspberry Pi 5 requires a USB-C power supply capable of delivering 5 volts and 5 amps. While older Raspberry Pi 4 power supplies might work, they may not provide enough current for the Pi 5, especially if you are using accessories like USB drives that draw power directly from the board. To avoid random shutdowns or power issues, ensure your power supply meets these specifications. The official recommendation is for a 27-watt USB-C power supply that ensures stable performance across all connected devices. My recommendation is to use the official Raspberry Pi USB-C power supply adapter, which is what I have here. This end goes into the USB-C port on the Raspberry Pi 5, and the other end goes into the wall, of course. Next, we'll be looking at the micro HDMI to HDMI cable. You will need this to connect your Pi to your monitor or TV. The Pi 5 has 2 micro HDMI ports, both supporting 4K at 60Hz, so you can use dual displays if needed. This single cable connects your Raspberry Pi 5 to your display. Be sure to grab a micro HDMI to standard HDMI cable if you plan to use a regular monitor or TV as your display. Which leads us nicely onto our next subject, which is the display or monitor. If you have chosen to use a desktop operating system with a graphical user interface, such as Raspberry Pi OS, you will need to connect a display or monitor to your Raspberry Pi to access the OS interface. Any HDMI capable monitor will work, but I recommend using 1080p display for the best balance between clarity and performance. A 1080p resolution provides a crisp, sharp interface that's easy on the eyes without overloading the Raspberry Pi resources. While the Raspberry Pi 5 does support up to 4K at 60Hz, using 4K might not be necessary unless you need the extra resolution for specific tasks, as it can be more demanding on processing power and it may slow down the system during more intensive tasks. Next, we'll be discussing the pros and cons of using a case with your Raspberry Pi 5. Using a case is highly recommended to protect your Pi from dust, accidental damage, and general wear and tear. Additional cases with built-in cooling solutions such as fans or heat sinks are essential if you're planning to run intensive tasks like AI, media streaming, gaming, or server-based workloads. These tasks can cause the Raspberry Pi 5 to generate significant heat, especially since this model tends to run hotter than previous versions under load. However, cases can complicate things if you plan to use extra components like hats, or you need to access the GPIO pins or cable connectors. Most cases are designed primarily to house the Raspberry Pi 5 itself, and some may only accommodate a single fan for cooling. Because of this, you need to be careful when selecting a case, especially if you plan to use external accessories. Cases can block or restrict access to the GPIO pins, cable connectors, or even specific hats. We will dive deeper into hat compatibility and case design in a future episode. Another key consideration is cooling. While active cooling solutions like fans are essential for managing heat, certain cases can limit your options. For example, the official Raspberry Pi 5 case comes with a standard fan, so it doesn't support the use of the official active cooler. So keep that in mind if you plan to use the active cooler on the official Raspberry Pi 5 case. For my setup, I chose to use the Pibo Coupe or Coupe 5 case by Pimeroni. This open frame design allows for better heat dissipation, and it leaves the GPIO pins and cable connectors easily accessible. Although this case doesn't offer complete protection like fully enclosed models, it provides much better airflow, which can help maintain lower temperatures during heavy use. I haven't tested it extensively with additional components yet, but I'll cover that in more detail in a future episode. Now let's connect the Raspberry Pi to the network. While the Raspberry Pi 5 has built-in Wi-Fi supporting 802.11ac, I recommend using an Ethernet cable. This will make for a stable and faster internet connection, which will speed up the installation time. Next, connect the Ethernet cable to the Ethernet port on the Raspberry Pi. Plug the other end of the Ethernet cable into your router or switch. To ensure you're getting the best performance, use a Category 5E or a Category 6 Ethernet cable, as these cables support gigabit Ethernet speeds by using all 4 twisted pairs inside the cable. Older cables such as Cat5 might only support 100 megabits per second if they don't have the full set of twisted pairs, which could limit your network speed. If you are using an older network hub or switch, it may also only support 100 megabytes per second, so it's worth checking to ensure all your networking equipment is gigabit compatible for the best performance. However, if Ethernet isn't an option for you, you can easily enable Wi-Fi directly from the Raspberry Pi imager. I will show you how to enable this shortly when we install the Raspberry Pi OS onto the SD card. Now let's connect a keyboard and mouse. I recommend plugging your keyboard and mouse into the USB 2.0 ports on the Raspberry Pi 5. This leaves the faster USB 3.0 ports free for other devices such as external hard drives or SSDs, which can fully utilize the higher transfer speeds of the USB 3.0, which is up to 5 gigabytes per second. By reserving the USB 3.0 ports for storage or high bandwidth peripherals, you ensure that your setup is optimized for speed and performance. Now we have everything connected up correctly, let's talk about how to prepare your micro SD card for installing Raspberry Pi OS. If your computer doesn't have a built-in SD card slot, you will need to use a USB adapter, like this one from BKL. This one is so good I have 2 of them, and it supports USB 3.0, so it takes advantage of the faster USB speeds. The SD card slots into the adapter like this. Make sure you put it in the correct way around to make sure it doesn't damage the card or reader. You can now plug the adapter directly into your computer's USB 3.0 port. Alternatively, if you do have an SD card slot available on your computer, then you can use a micro SD to SD card adapter that comes with most SD cards, like this one. Just insert the adapter into the available slot on your computer. Now you should be ready to install Raspberry Pi OS onto the SD card. So we've connected our SD card to our computer, and we are now on a Windows 11 desktop. We are going to go to the Raspberry Pi website, and we're going to download the Raspberry Pi imager, and we're going to install it, and then we're going to install the Raspberry Pi OS onto the SD card. So we are at the website now. There is a link in the description box below if you guys want a direct link. It is raspberrypi.com/software. And if you scroll down the page just a little bit here, you will see a download for Windows button. So we're going to click on that, and it's downloaded. So what we're going to do now is we're going to click on open file, and then we're going to click yes. And on the installer, we're going to click install. So it now says run Raspberry Pi Imager. We're going to click finish to run the Raspberry Pi Imager. And we're going to close out of this browser window. So now that we have the Raspberry Pi Imager open, we are going to choose a device, which is the Raspberry Pi 5. We're now going to choose the operating system. Now you have a few options in here for different operating systems. If you're going to follow along with the Raspberry Pi 5 series, we are going to be installing Raspberry Pi OS 64-bit, which is a full desktop version. The reason why I'm installing the full desktop version is I'm going to be showing you how to set up some projects on the desktop, and we're going to need this installed to follow along with the episodes. If you guys are looking to just store a headless sort of server environment, which is like a lighter version of Raspberry Pi OS, if you click on Raspberry Pi OS Other, right here you can see the Raspberry Pi OS Lite 64-bit. This is the version you'll want to install if you are wanting to run a headless server environment. You will need to set up SSH in the configuration settings, and then you'll be able to connect via a terminal somewhere else on your network. But we're going to come back and we're going to install the full desktop version of Raspberry Pi OS. And now we're going to choose our storage. This screen may look different to you depending on what size SD card you have in. Mine is here, which is listed, so I'm going to click on that. Just be warned that if you do select the SD card that there's got no data on there that you want to keep, because this process will completely reformat the drive and any data will be lost. So keep that in mind. Now it's asking us, we've clicked next, so now it's asking us to use the OS customization, and we do want to do that. So we click edit settings. So in this menu, we can set some OS customizations. So I'm going to set a host name. We're going to leave it as Raspberry Pi. And then I'm going to set a username. It will use your default Windows name. So I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to put addicted to tech as a username. And then you want to add a password. And from within this menu, you can also configure the wireless as well. If you have an SSID, you can put it in here as well as the password. You want to make sure that you set the correct SSID and password here, because if you get it wrong, when you go to boot the Raspberry Pi and you don't have a monitor or you don't have it connected to through Ethernet, you will not see this appear on your network and you could have connection issues. So you need to make sure that this is correct. So now you can set your, so I'm not going to set any wireless options on that. But you can also set your locale settings here, which is Europe and London for me. You can change yours if you need to. We can now look at services. Under services, we can enable SSH if we need to connect to it. And we want to use password authentication. You can secure this with public keys, but right now we're just looking at a basic installation. We can set this up later on when we connect to our Raspberry Pi. And the final section here is options, and you can ask it to eject the media when it's finished. And you can enable telemetry. So I'm going to turn enable telemetry off, and I'm going to click save. Okay, so now we are ready. We've set the configuration settings and we're ready to click yes. So it's now warning you that all existing data will be erased. That's fine. Click yes. It's now writing the Raspberry Pi OS to the SD card. So you just need to sit back now and let the process finish. So that's now finished. It does take a little while to install, so I sped up the process so you guys didn't have to sit through it. What it does is it writes the image to the SD card and then it verifies it afterwards to check that the integrity is there. It looks at the checksums and just makes sure that there's no corruption in the installation. Now that that's complete, you can safely remove your SD card from your computer, and we can go and install it now on your Raspberry Pi. So to complete the process, just click continue and you can cross out of the Raspberry Pi Imager. So installing the SD card is very simple. You turn the Raspberry Pi upside down so that you can get a clear view of the port here. And then you pick up the SD card. Make sure you get it the right way around so you don't damage the connecting pins. And you just slot it in like so. And that's it. So now you've got your Raspberry Pi set up and you have your operating system on your SD card. You are now ready to connect everything up again, and we can boot into Raspberry Pi OS. So that's it for today's episode. You've now successfully installed Raspberry Pi OS onto your micro SD card and configured all the necessary settings to get your Raspberry Pi up and running. Before you go, I have some really exciting news. To celebrate the reboot of the channel, I've created an Addicted to Tech community Discord server. You'll find a join link in the description box below. It's only just gone live, so be one of the first to join. This will replace our old forum and serve as a space for you to get support and suggest content ideas and connect with like-minded tech enthusiasts. I'm also planning some exciting competitions and events, though I can't really reveal too much just yet. But I'm genuinely excited about what's coming. So hop on over, introduce yourself, and let's build a stronger community together. Lastly, I want to remind you that everything I've shown you today, from the SD card adapters to the power supply, is linked in the description box below as affiliate links. Using these links helps support the channel and no extra cost to you, and I only recommend products that I personally trust and use. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you are notified of future uploads. All this leaves me to say is thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.